a motor vehicle, to which I am not operating a motor vehicle. And this is what we are trying to
I guess.
circumvent.
Yeah,
I am
and
operating my
it's not
automobile,
circumventing.
not a motor vehicle.
I will ask you this: how is your right to travel removed by receiving the citation?
By trying to require me to have a license to operate a automobile, which is my private.
We've got a tense courtroom moment today, and honestly, this kind of case is showing up more and more. A man who calls himself a sovereign citizen is trying to argue that he doesn't need car insurance. His reason? He claims he's not actually driving. He says he's just traveling, and thinks that makes him exempt from traffic laws. If that sounds familiar, it's because this argument has popped up before. And once again, it's not holding up in court. Now, credit to the magistrate, he stayed calm and polite. He walked the man through the actual legal definitions and explained why that logic doesn't apply. I respect that approach. But at the same time, I couldn't help but feel like the whole thing went on too long. This wasn't some complex legal case. It was a clear misunderstanding of basic traffic laws, repeated over and over. And while the judge tried to be fair and patient, I think the hearing could have wrapped up sooner with a firmer hand. Then again, every judge has their own way of handling things. Some like to give people space to speak, even if their arguments don't hold water. This magistrate chose the patient route, maybe to avoid any claims of unfairness. What do you think? Did the magistrate do the right thing by letting it play out, or should he have shut it down earlier? Let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear your take now. Let's get back to the hearing and see how the rest plays out. School so, get.
This is a civil infraction. If you were found responsible, all other things being equal, the court would assess $125 fines, costs, and fees. It is a 0-point ticket. And in the second case that ends with the letter B, that same date, time, and place, you were issued a citation for having an expired registration plate. That is also a civil infraction. It is also a 0-point civil infraction. If you were found responsible, all other things being equal, the court would assess $110 fines, costs, and fees. So first question, is that the ticket or the two cases that you thought you were appearing about, Mr. Williams?
It is.
Okay, and same question to you, Officer Kellums?
Yes, sir.
Very good. In every civil case, the plaintiff has the burden of proof, and in a case like this, that burden of proof is called by a preponderance of evidence.
Only question I have is, will the laws of the U.S. Supreme Court be applicable, and the federal statutes and definitions of motor vehicle and automobile be applicable in this proceeding?
They are the state of Michigan laws that will be applicable.
Okay. The other question is, are you already not bound by U.S. Supreme Court rulings?
Every court is bound by relevant Supreme Court rulings.
Okay. All right.
I'm not sure why you're asking that, but that's okay. All right, Officer Kellums, if you would begin, please.
So on November 19th, 2024, I was on patrol for the Battle Creek Police Department. When I observed the vehicle that Mr. Roosevelt was driving, I observed that it had expired tags on the vehicle. I then conducted a traffic stop on Fountain Street near Meacham Ave. Found Mr. Williams to be driving the vehicle, where I issued him the citations. When speaking with Mr. Williams, he could not provide insurance, and his tags were expired.
All right. Did Mr. Williams say anything to you during the stop about having insurance or not having insurance, or anything about the tags on the plates, anything like that?
He informed me that he did not have to have insurance due to that he was traveling, and to drive a vehicle, you don't have to have insurance. Something regarding Supreme Court. That's about all he said.
Okay. All right. Do you want me to consider anything else at this point, Officer Kellums?
No, sir.
Okay, Mr. Williams, could you hear Officer Kellums' testimony?
Yes, I heard his testimony.
Very good. Thank you for your patience. What do I need to know, sir?
Okay, I did inform Officer Kelly that I am not operating a motor vehicle, but I am operating an automobile. I did inform Officer Kelly of the ruling of Rodriguez v. Ray Donovan, U.S. Department of Labor, 769 Federal 2nd, 1344, where the U.S. Supreme Court's decision has ruled that all codes, rules, and regulations are for government authorities only and not for human creators. In accordance with God laws, all codes, rules, and regulations are unconstitutional and lacking due process.
All right, I'm going to interrupt you just for a second. Are you telling me that a case at 769 Fed Second 1344 indicates that all laws?
The sovereign citizen in court actually tried to use the case Rodriguez versus Ray Donovan to argue why he doesn't need car insurance. But here's the thing, that case has nothing to do with Michigan traffic laws. It dealt with a completely different legal issue in another state. It doesn't support his point at all. Honestly, I'm not even sure why he brought it up. Maybe he thought it would sound smart or throw the magistrate off. But let's be real, the judge knows the law. This guy clearly doesn't. It's pretty obvious who's in control of the courtroom here. What do you think? Does that argument make any sense to you? Because I've looked at it from every angle, and it just doesn't hold up. Drop your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to know if anyone sees it differently at school. This guy is really testing the magistrate's patience now. He's even trying to twist the magistrate's own words, and let's be honest, that's never a good idea.
Required to have one, stating that when you're not operating in commerce, to which I informed the officer that I am not operating in commerce as stated in USC 18 USCA 31 paragraph A6, states that a motor vehicle, the term of motor vehicle meaning every description of carriage, conveyance, propelled or drawn or mechanical powered and used for commercial purposes. This is what Title 18 USCA Section 31A6 states or defines as a motor vehicle, to which I am not operating in commerce. I'm not using
for the purposes of that particular chapter of the United States Code. It would not control what happens in terms of the Michigan legislature defining in Chapter 257 what a motor vehicle is, and an automobile
right
under Michigan law is a motor vehicle. But okay, continue.
Right, it's a motor vehicle, which is described as anything, even by the Michigan compliance statute of 751, which you just stated, is determined as something that's transporting goods, which I'm not transporting goods.
I understand your position, and I can tell you that that position doesn't happen to be legally correct. But go ahead.
So you're basically stating that there's a misinterpretation.
When the person you're arguing with controls the outcome of your case. In court, one of the worst things you can do is try to outsmart the judge. They've got the authority to hit you with fines, or worse at this point. I can't tell if he's just completely clueless, like a lot of other sovereign citizens we've seen, or if he genuinely thinks he's some kind of legal mastermind. Either way, it's starting to feel more like a comedy routine than a legal defense. He's acting like he's 2 steps ahead, but it's all falling apart right in front of him, and now, he's digging even deeper, throwing out more legal case names to try to prove his point. Let's take a look at what else he brings up and see if anything he says actually makes sense. At school, it seems like this magistrate might be new to dealing with a sovereign citizen like this. He's explaining every point in detail, almost like he's trying to convince someone that water is
somehow but regardless, am trying to convert a right into a privilege. Now, the question I have for you is, what right has been converted to a privilege?
My right to freely travel unencumbered and
now,
unfettered.
I will ask you this. How is your right to travel removed by receiving the citation?
By trying to require me to have a license to operate a automobile, which is my private vehicle.
Okay. All right. Is there anything else you want me to consider?
No, sir.
All right. Well, I can tell you this. The Michigan motor vehicle laws, including the laws that require you to carry insurance, that require your vehicle to be registered, and require that registration to be current, do not run in violation of any right to travel under the Constitution or the United States Supreme Court decision that you have cited. In fact, Michigan courts have held that essentially the right to travel means the right for you to move from A to B, not the right for you to travel from A to B under your most convenient way. So you could walk from point A to B all you wanted. You could take a taxi or an Uber or a plane or a train or a bus. But if you wish to travel by using a motor vehicle, the Michigan laws are applicable and don't unconstitutionally interfere with the right to travel. It doesn't convert the right to travel into a privilege. You are not denied the right to travel. You may be denied the privilege of traveling via a motor vehicle that you are operating.
Wet. At times, it even feels like the sovereign citizen is gaining ground, but that's probably just because the magistrate is giving him so much room to talk now. I do respect the judge for giving the guy a fair chance to speak. That's part of due process. But let's be honest, these kinds of arguments never go anywhere. They usually just drag things out and waste everyone's time. If you pay attention, even the officer sitting in the corner looks like he's thinking, can we wrap this up already? What do you think? Is the magistrate being too patient, or is he handling things the right way? Let me know in the comments. Now, let's get back to the hearing and see where it goes from here. Skull. At this point, it really feels like the magistrate needs to bring this hearing to a close. It's already gone on way longer than it probably should have.
So
Okay, so
that is what the law says, and that's what I'm finding. Is there anything else you want me to consider about that finding?
Shuttleworth v. Birmingham, U.S. 147. Do you mind telling me what the U.S. Supreme Court ruled in that?
U.S. 147 doesn't give me the site of a case. That's an incomplete site of a case. Okay.
It was Shuttle.
And if you wish me to consider the case, why don't you tell me what was at issue in the case and what year it was decided?
I said Shuttleworth v. Birmingham, U.S. 147, 1969, where it says
hold on.
license.
U.S. 147 is not a complete cite. The way you cite to a case is by name and then volume number and then the name of the publication and then the page number. So, for instance, when you said 769 Fed 2nd 1344, what that means is volume 769 of a book or volumes called the Federal Reporter, 2nd edition, at page 1344. So when you're asking me about this most recent case that you've talked about, what you said was US 147, I think. That's not the citation to a case. So you're going to have to tell me more about that case. Who were the parties to that case, and what issue was before the Supreme Court in that case?
Okay, so you didn't hear me cite the name of Shuttleworth v. Birmingham?
I heard you say the name. That doesn't tell me what. That's not a complete cite of the case.
All right. Do you not have the documents that I filed when I filed to say that I want to have an informal hearing? The affidavit that writes that my
there are documents that have been scanned into the court that you dropped off.
Okay. So
from those documents, why don't you tell me the proper citation for Shuttle versus Birmingham?
Okay. Traffic infractions are not crimes, blah, blah, blah. Person faced with. Okay.
Right. Traffic infractions are not crimes. That's absolutely correct. They are civil infractions for a reason.
I was reading from a different case, but the case that I'm citing from states that no license necessary to drive an automobile on public highways, streets. No license is necessary. The word operator should not include any person who solely transport his own property and who transport no persons or property for hire or
where's that citation from?
Okay, I just appeal it, and that way I can make sure all citations are.
That's fine. I mean, the idea is I can't look up what you're telling me, right, without a proper citation. So you can read. I mean, for all I know, and I don't mean this, I'm using a farcical example. For all I know, you're quoting the municipal court in Honolulu, Hawaii, which has no jurisdiction over Michigan.
It's understandable.
I don't know.
So
the sovereign citizen keeps referencing legal cases, but he clearly doesn't understand them. He's just rattling off names from a notebook without knowing what they actually mean. Honestly, it's like watching someone give a school report without ever reading the book. It just doesn't hold up. That said, I've got to give credit where it's due. The magistrate has been impressively calm and professional through all of this. He's taken the time to explain basic legal principles, things most people understand or at least accept. But in this case, it feels completely one-sided. The magistrate is trying to clarify the law, but the other guy clearly isn't listening or doesn't want to. It does make you wonder, is it helpful to keep entertaining these kinds of arguments? Or is it just encouraging more people to come into court with half-baked legal theories and waste everyone's time? What do you think? Is the magistrate being fair and patient, or is he letting this go on way too long? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. Now let's jump back in and see how the sentencing plays out at school. I'll be honest, this particular sovereign citizen wasn't like the ones we usually see. Most of the time, they're loud, combative, and flat-out disrespectful. But this guy, he stayed calm and polite the whole time.
So I would cite Payne v. Massey, 196 Southwest 2nd, 493, Texas, 273.
Okay. Well, and I can tell you that Texas law, a court interpreting Texas law, that decision wouldn't be controlling on a Michigan court. But that's fine. I think I understand where you're going. If you want, I don't need to consider anything else. I'm just asking you, is there anything else
Okay, well,
you want to present to me?
if you're not going to consider anything else, then we can proceed on to your ruling, of which I know you're going to find. So, and like I said, like you said, I have a right to appeal it. So
yeah, and I'm willing to listen. If you're going to quote something, I need to know what you're quoting, and I need a proper citation so I can look it up myself, right? Because otherwise people could just run around quoting Mickey Mouse if they wanted.
is my automobile not my private, personal automobile that's not being used in commerce?
I would have no idea the use of your motor vehicle, and it's not relevant to me for the purposes of deciding whether you're responsible for these civil infractions.
Okay. Well, I have nothing else for you to consider.
Well, very good. I'm letting you know the law does not make a distinction between your using the vehicle for personal reasons or you're using the vehicle for commercial reasons when your registration plate is expired and when you fail to show proof of insurance. Both of those are required.
The MCL language.
Both of those are required under Michigan law for anyone operating any motor vehicle. That's what I can tell you. So
correct. If you're a motor vehicle, to which I am not operating a motor vehicle, and this is what we are trying to,
I guess,
circumvent.
Yeah,
I am operating my automobile, not a motor vehicle.
I can tell you that an automobile is considered a motor vehicle under the Michigan Motor Vehicle Code, so that's fine. Is there anything else you want me to consider?
Nope.
Very good. All right. So I've listened very carefully to the evidence. I do find that it's more likely than not that when you were required to by Officer Kellums at a traffic stop show proof that your vehicle was insured, that you failed to do so, and that it is more likely that your operator's, or not your operator's license, I'm sorry, the registration plates on the vehicle were expired. So I'm going to assess the $125 on the no proof of insurance case and the $110 on the expired plates case. All right. Thank you both for your time and patience. You're all set. Have a very good day.
Thank you, sir. You too.